Yes, Amrit, we can
Hello.
begin.
Yes. Hello. I'm Amrit Prakash Nair, and on behalf of KJ Somaiya Institute of Management and Team Interface, it is my privilege to be bestowed with the pleasant task of welcoming this distinguished gathering to the 17th SIMSR Global Marketing Conference. Today, we mark day one of the event, which will be followed by day two tomorrow. The theme for the year is Redefining Customer Journeys. The conference focuses on the theme, scope, and its relevance across various aspects in the marketing arena. And with this 17th SIMSR Global Marketing Conference, we at KJ Somaiya Institute of Management are trying to achieve just that by giving a platform to all those academicians across the world to learn, explore, and understand this concept of customer journey and how it is playing an important role in shaping the ever-evolving marketplace. I have the proud privilege to warmly welcome the Honorable Vice Chancellor of Somaiya Vidya Vihar University, Professor Dr. V.N. Rajashekharan Pillai. Professor Pillai has been at the helm of affairs of many higher educational and scientific research establishments for the last 47 years of service as a teacher, researcher, professor, and executive head of education, science and technology establishments in the country and abroad. An elected fellow of the Indian Academy of Sciences, Professor Rajashekharan Pillai is one among the top cited chemistry researchers in the country. He created an internationally renowned research group in the areas of conformational studies of peptides and proteins. Over 50 doctoral and postdoctoral researchers have been trained under his direct supervision. Some of the top executive positions which Dr. Pillai occupied include the Vice Chairmanship and Chairmanship of University Grants Commission, Executive Director of National Assessment and Accreditation Council, Vice Chancellor of Indira Gandhi National Open University, Chairman of Distance Education Council, Vice Chancellor of Mahatma Gandhi University, Kottayam, Kerala, Vice Chancellor of Cochin University of Science and Technology, Kerala. He is on the director board of Apollo Groups of Hospital and on the boards of several academic and research establishments in the country and abroad. Since January 2018, Professor Rajashekharan Pillai has served as the professor and provost of Somaiya Vidya Vihar and Somaiya Ayur Vihar under the Somaiya Trust, Mumbai. We welcome you, sir, to the 17th SGMC conference. I request sir to kindly address the gathering.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm sitting in the airport, Delhi airport. Thank you very much for extending me an invitation to participate in the 17th Global Marketing Conference organized by the Somaiya Institute of Management. I am glad that you have selected a very important theme, redefining customer journeys. From the program, I see that a good number of resource persons, eminent specialists on marketing is participating in this conference. I also have gone through the list of papers and lectures. I see a lot of importance for this particular seminar, particularly in the event of the COVID situation. So when we redefine customer journeys, we have to see a paradigm shift in the overall context of marketing. Even, of course, I was just trying to understand global marketing conference. Even the context of global, international, all these things are changing in a very, very drastic way. We have seen that during the last 2 years, over 2 years, the technology has invaded almost every sphere of our activity, and marketing is no exemption to that. We can see a lot of new things happening in all areas, and marketing is no exemption. And therefore, it is very important that we should consider these aspects in a very scientific and logistic way. And our marketing department in the university, KJ Somaiya Institute of Management, is one of the strongest departments in the university. And if we just look at the research profile of the marketing department, also, we can see that excellent work has been done in this area. We have to come to the forefront of research. And now with the university coming into existence, We have a lot of opportunities for excelling in the areas of research. You are all doing it, but dialogue, interaction with global experts, national and international experts in marketing, maybe analyzing marketing in the context of all the very dynamic situations which are happening. All these things are happening. So it is very important that such a conference is being organized by our university. I am not, of course, I came to Delhi for some meeting. I'm just returning. I take this opportunity to congratulate the Department of Marketing and also the director of the Institute, Dr. Monica Khanna, Dr. Kiran Sharma, and all the members of the organizing committee and the students and the participants for this very important event. I wish the program all success. I will try to attend, of course, for the next 2.5 hours, I will be in the flight. So I will try to attend, probably from tomorrow onwards, I will try to attend some sessions. And if there is a possibility towards the valedictory session, I will just give some more reflections on it. And let me wish the program all success. I have to board right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your gracious presence and inspiring words. Hope you have a safe flight. We would now like to warmly welcome the director of KJ Somaiya Institute of Management, Dr. Monica Khanna, who has been a pillar of strength for our institute. Dr. Monica Khanna, BTech, MMS, PhD, is the director of KJ Somaiya Institute of Management, Mumbai, and Dean Faculty of Management Sciences at Somaiya Vidya Vihar University. She has rich academic experience of 25 years as a faculty and researcher in the area of marketing and brand management. She is visiting faculty at international institutions such as DHBW Stuttgart, Germany, and Institute of Industrial Management, Economics and Trade, Peter the Great St. Petersburg Polytechnic University, Russia. Dr. Monica Khanna has an industry experience of 4 years in engineering and industrial automation with Siemens Limited, Mumbai. She is passionate about research and writing case studies and won awards for case study competition at Aditya V. Birla India Center at the London Business School in 2007 and 2008. Dr. Monica Khanna has successfully guided 3 PhD scholars. She has been elected as member of Managing Council of All India Management Association, AIM in New Delhi for 2015 to 17, 2017 to 19, and 2019 to 21. It is an honor to have you amidst us, ma'am. I would now like to call upon our beloved director, Dr. Monica Khanna, ma'am, to say a few words.
Thank you so much for such a warm welcome. And I was really looking at the credentials that you're reading out for me. I thank you so much for all of that. It's indeed my proud privilege to be at the inaugural function of the 17th SIMSR Global Marketing Conference. In fact, I would like to tell you that I've been part of the Somaiya Management Institute since November 1995, and it's a long journey with the institute. And the marketing conference actually started in the year 2005. So I have been witness to all the editions of the conference from the first conference onwards. And I'm really very happy to inform you and to observe the manner in which the conference has evolved over these past years. The number of journals that are tying up with the conference, in the marketing conference, and the type of illustrious speakers that we are attracting from all over the world, that really speaks volumes about the manner in which the conference has really evolved over the period of time. So I have prepared a small speech. Just hold on. I'm not able to. Just hold on. I prepared a small speech for the inaugural. The theme for today for the conference, Redefining Customer Journeys, as Professor Pillai has said, it's really very, very appropriate because, and specifically so in the last 2 years, the manner in which the COVID pandemic has affected all of us and the infusion of technology into our day-to-day activities, I think that has really pushed and made a big difference in the manner in which consumers interact with the markets, consumers interact with each other, and the manner in which the products and services are presented to the consumers so that they can take their appropriate purchase decisions. So it is really actually redefining consumer journeys. And I think this is something which really deserves a lot of discussions and debates, because going into the future, a lot of the survival of the companies and the strategies that they make would depend on how they are able to identify in the manner in which the consumers undertake their purchase and buying journeys. Now, again, when I was preparing for this small speech, I just did a little bit of a Google search, and going back in memory, I came across this book, Alice in Wonderland. I'm sure you must have also heard about it. And I got a very interesting quote from the book, Alice in Wonderland. And I read the quote for you. It says, "It's no use going back to yesterday because I was a different person then." I thought this quote was very appropriate for the theme of the conference, redefining customer journeys, because what we were and what you were, maybe 2 years ago, maybe 1 year ago, we are now completely different. The environment has changed, the world has changed, and obviously we have to think of new strategies. Our entire journeys have changed. So this quote from the book Alice in Wonderland, it was written by Lewis Carroll and first published in 1865. It aptly describes the current economic, social, and technological environment in which markets and consumers find themselves in today. The interplay between these three factors have completely redefined the manner in which companies conduct their business and present their products and services to consumers across the entire value chain. And equally changed is how consumers evaluate all available choices across multiple touch points to make their buying decisions. Consumer journeys have evolved into ubiquity, anywhere, anytime evaluation, purchase, and consumption. Successful marketing strategies would depend in part upon how companies evaluate consumer buying behavior at these various touch points across the full spectrum of the consumer journey. There is also complexity in decision making for companies due to the inherent heterogeneous nature of populations in terms of cultures, subcultures, languages, digital readiness state, food and lifestyle habits, and so on. The marketing function has to evolve in delivering value to the consumers along their journey spectrum, while at the same time retaining profitability and sustainability for the companies. The Department of Marketing and International Business at KJ Somaiya Institute of Management has always been creating platforms where leading academicians and practitioners come together every year to discuss the latest happenings and changes in the field of marketing and international business. And one such platform is the annual research paper-based, the SIMSR Global Marketing Conference, now in its 17th edition, and is being continuously conducted irrespective of all the difficulties being faced due to the COVID pandemic situation. In fact, I think that the COVID situation and the use of the Zoom platform has actually made the entire conference and the conferences boundaryless, and we're able to attract eminent academicians and delegates from across the world. On behalf of KJ Somaiya Institute of Management, I would like to welcome our eminent keynote speaker for today, Dr. Yan Benedict Steencamp. He is the Massey Distinguished Professor of Marketing at the University of North Carolina's Kenan-Flagler School of Business. Dr. O.K. Peter Onya, Editor-in-Chief, Journal of Financial Services Marketing, for giving insights into how to publish in academic journals, and part of our panel. The pre-conference workshop on qualitative research through the use of the NVivo software by Dr. Jaspreet Kaur, Associate Professor from the Pearl Academy, New Delhi, gave the delegates very good learnings and insights into how to do qualitative research using the NVivo software. The quality of research papers being presented at this conference has been going up every year. The increasing number of journal tie-ups for the conference shows the rising acceptance and credibility of the conference. I would sincerely like to congratulate the conference organizers for all their efforts and persistent hard work, and I wish the conference the very best of luck. We are rapidly moving towards the 20th edition of the conference, and I'm sure in the years to come, this conference is going to become bigger, better, and much brighter. And there's going to be, I'm very sure about it, there are going to be many takeaways for all the delegates and participants from this conference. And I really wish you the best of debates, deliberations, and learnings. Thank you so much, and welcome to the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your insightful address. And it was a really good speech, ma'am. I really enjoyed it. I think I speak for everyone.
Thank you.
We are delighted to have with us today Dr. Kiran Sharma, Area Chairperson, Marketing and International Business. Dr. Kiran Sharma has prior corporate experience of about a decade. She has been in academics for more than 12 years now and has been awarded the degree of PhD in Consumer Behavior. She has pursued a course in marketing strategy from Harvard University and has been an integral part of Somaiya Institute of Management, Mumbai for more than 12 years. Her research interests are in the area of consumer behavior, especially with relevance to emotions in marketing. It is an honor to have you with us today, ma'am. I now most humbly request Dr. Kiran Sharma to kindly address the audience.
Thank you, Amrit. Thank you for such a warm welcome. Let me begin by wishing everyone a very good evening. It's the first time that we are having an inaugural in an evening. So good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the 17th edition of the SIMSR Global Marketing Conference, which is organized by the Department of Marketing and International Business at the Somaiya Institute of Management Studies, which is a constituent institute under Somaiya Vidyavihar University. We are indeed delighted to welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Jan-Benedict Steenkamp, Massey Distinguished Professor of Marketing at the University of North Carolina's Flagler Business School. We are indeed grateful to him for joining us and agreeing to deliver the keynote address. We are also thankful to Dr. Peter Oke, Editor-in-Chief for Journal of Financial Services Marketing, who will be taking a workshop on how to publish in quality research journals, which I think will be very relevant for all the academicians and the researchers within us. I take the opportunity to welcome, on behalf of the entire marketing department, including the organizing team of the conference, to extend a warm welcome to our Vice Chancellor, Sir, Dr. V.N. Rajashekharan Pillai, for being able to join us from the airport, and also to Dr. Monica Khanna, our Director at Somaiya Institute of Management. I would like to take this opportunity in welcoming all the delegates, my faculty colleagues, and the students to the conference, and we look forward to welcoming you very soon at the Somaiya Vidyavihar campus. The 17th edition of the conference, as rightly pointed out earlier by Dr. Monica Khanna and VC Sir, with its theme, Redefining Customer Journeys, is so relevant in the present times. We have all witnessed such unprecedented times since March 2020 due to the COVID pandemic. The past year since March 2020 has certainly been a year which we had never thought of, with the coronavirus which wreaked havoc across the world. Businesses were closed, schools were closed, no graduations, no convocation ceremonies, and on top of that, the daily worry about contracting COVID. In such times, I'm sure you'll all agree that we have seen that customer experience has played a very vital role. Managing and enhancing customer experience is what we thought aptly to delve into deeper. So therefore, customer experience across multiple channels and customer interactions at multiple touch points has emerged as an important market research area in the past 2 or 3 years. Specifically, during the last couple of years, we've seen this research area growing. A great customer journey is the outcome of efforts across a variety of considerations, such as experience, processes, and the environment. As consumers, we play a very vital role in this ever-evolving marketplace. Due to the growing awareness of the need to manage and design effective customer experience across various touchpoints and service offerings, customer journey mapping and customer journey proposition tools are increasingly used by marketers in understanding the changing consumer behavior. In a rapidly changing world of how brands and customers interact, customer experience should always be on the top of the mind recall for business leaders. One must be able to clearly differentiate which behaviors are changing, why they are changing, and which behaviors are not changing. Only then will they be able to deliver competitive customer experience by mapping the customer journey efficiently. I'm extremely happy to say that we had an overwhelming response to our call for papers, wherein 57 papers, extended abstracts are being presented at the conference on multiple areas discussing redefining customer journeys across multiple facets. As part of the conference, we had an excellent workshop taken by Professor Jaspreet Kaur for 4 days prior to the conference, which was on qualitative analysis using NVivo. NVivo is a software which is used for qualitative analysis. It provided the participants of the workshop a hands-on experience with NVivo, and we hope that it helps us in developing our research possibilities even much more in the near future. We have an extremely impressive list of journals which have agreed to partner us for the 17th edition of the SIMSR Global Marketing Conference. They are the International Review of Retail, Distribution and Consumer Research, the Journal of Marketing Communications, both from Taylor and Francis, both B category journals, International Journal of Emerging Markets from Emerald, and Journal of Financial Services Marketing, Palgrave, also B category journals in the ABDC list of journals. We also have a tie-up with South Asian Journal of Management and Business Management and Business Perspectives, both C category journals from MDESA and SAGE respectively. We look forward to your active participation, and let me take this opportunity of requesting everyone to send in your full papers to the journals to avail of this golden opportunity that we have tried to bring it open for you. I would like to end here by a quote from Jeff Bezos. The most important thing is, as he says, to obsessively focus on the customer. It's our job every day to make every important aspect of the customer experience a little bit better. Look forward to constructive discussions and deliberations during the conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for that wonderful speech. We would now like to welcome Dr. Dimple Kaul, who is the conference chairperson and a faculty member at KJ Somaiya Institute of Management. With more than 20 years of work experience in industry and academia, she is a recognized PG faculty of Mumbai University and a PhD guide at Somaiya Vidya Vihar University. She is a reviewer of several A-rated journals on Elsevier and Emerald. Her research papers are published in A category, ABDC journals and other peer-reviewed UGC-approved journals. Academic research and professional with PhD in customer experience in lifestyle retail from NMIMS University, Mumbai. Her research interests are in the area of customer experience management, consumer behavior, brand management, and retail. We welcome you, ma'am, to the 17th SGMC. For now, we'll be going through the event and what we have planned ahead for everyone for the next 2 days.
While the team interface takes you through the brochure, I would also like to welcome our Professor Emeritus and advisor of the 17th SGMC Conference, Professor Isaac Jacob. We welcome you, sir, and we know you have been a pillar of strength for all of us. And it's been great to work under your leadership. You have continued to inspire us and to support us throughout this conference. And now that you are still as a conference advisor and keeping us all together and motivated at all times, we welcome you again to the 17th SGMC, sir. A word or two from your side, please. Thank you.
Indeed, it's been a great privilege to be here on this very momentous occasion. And of course, as a part of the conference committee for the last maybe 12, 14 years that I've been here in this institute, I think we have seen the conference grow in strength and strength. And as our director, Dr. Monica Khanna, mentioned, that this particular conference has gone from one strong platform to another in terms of really bringing out cutting edge, discussions, research papers, presentations, keynote addresses from perhaps the most well-known scholars across the globe in the area of marketing and international business. And we're indeed very happy that we are having Dr. Steenkamp give us the keynote address to this particular conference as such, very well-revered academician. And also, I'm very happy to note that there are some very wonderful research papers that are going to be presented during the proceedings tomorrow. And the theme that is there is very apt and very highly contemporary, as we all know. And therefore, it's going to take academic learning and research into a distinctly different level in the area of customer culture, for instance. I think that's the major outcome that we are expecting from this particular conference. But wonderful to see the number of papers that has come in, the kind of just going through some of the titles of these research papers that are going to be presented in the proceedings tomorrow onwards till the evening tomorrow. Really, they're very highly thought-provoking, and more importantly, something I'm sure will take the understanding of customer culture in this shifted and changed environment, the discontinuous environment that customers have found themselves in. And that's going to be, I think that's the biggest outcome that we can expect from this particular 17th SGMC conference as such. So therefore, I'm really very excited and very happy to be, involved in this conference once more. And thank you very much, really, for inviting me for this and being given the opportunity to be the advisor to this conference. And I'm sure this is going to really help out researchers as well as faculty and scholars to really look at customer in a distinctly different perspective and in a distinctly different light, for instance. So thank you very much. It's a great opportunity to be here, and I'm really privileged to be participating in various forms in this 17th SGMC conference. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your kind words. Team SGMC, you may please share the conference brochure and the schedule. We have the schedule, conference schedule.
Yes,
please share it with all the participants. Thank you.
Would share the conference schedule.
It may be difficult to read so fast. So why don't you just make a full screen?
Yes.
What time is Professor Steenkamp expected?
Ma'am, he will join us in 10 minutes. At 7:30. Yes.
Okay.
He may join 5 minutes early or so. Yeah, I have sent a message across to you.
Okay. So I think, why don't you say something about the papers, Dimple? Why don't you say something about what are the papers and what are the journals?
Yeah, sure.
How did you go about tying with the journals? I think we can just spend some time.
Yes. This time we have tied up with 4 prestigious journals for the 17th SGMC. And these journals, we have taken a lot of effort to connect with them, communicate with them. It took us almost a month to really connect with them and materialize. For example, the Journal of Financial Services Marketing is a very prestigious journal. And we have Dr. Oki Peter Anya, who is also the editor-in-chief of the journal. He will be presenting on how to publish in peer-reviewed journals tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. We also have partnered with other journals like International Review of Retail, Distribution and Consumer Research, which is again a B category journal, International Journal of Emerging Markets, B category ABDC journal. And we also tied up with Journal of Marketing Communication, a very prestigious journal, again, in the B category. So in all, we have 4 B category journal tie-ups, along with our own reputed business perspectives and research, which is also listed on the ABDC. So in all, 5 journal tie-ups. In addition to this, we also have our academic partner, St. Peter, the great Petersburg Polytechnic University, Russia. Dr. Nelly is here with us today, and she's been a big pillar of support throughout our conferences for years now, many years now. So for the publication opportunities that we are providing to our delegates are immense, are really great for this year, because we have 4 good journals, reputed journals. And for the next year, for the 18th SGMC, we will be inviting full papers, we'll be inviting abstracts, and we will also be inviting extended abstracts in the next year. So there are good publication opportunities, and we'll try to continue the collaboration with our partnering journals, and maybe also rope in some more, so that we can improve the gamut of our publications and opportunities that we provide to our delegates who participate in the conference. So as we also change and add new formats of papers, we are also adding new conference journals. We are also adding prestigious speakers to the journal, to the conference over years. And I think all of this has immensely helped our SGMC go to the next level. One of the key things that I have seen while I was working with my team, Team SGMC, what we have observed is that besides just publishing papers or besides just submitting extended abstracts or papers to our journal, we have also substantially improved our brand image by using different digital media platforms and also using the branding guidelines of Somaiya Vidya Vihar University. That has helped us a lot, in addition to the different things that we have been doing on social media and other digital media platforms for SGMC, for instance. So that has also helped us in building our brand, SGMC, in the long run. And that should also help our delegates who are participating in the conference in connecting with important and reputed and I would say people who are well versed with research. They can connect with them, in fact share their articles, share their papers, and take their views and feedbacks and improve the quality of work that they are in the process of making or deciding or starting to make. So in all, that's what I can say about this conference. And the kind of workshops that we have had are very hands-on, practical, and latest contemporary. So we're not doing anything which was done 10 years back. We're doing something which is contemporary and will help not just promote the qualitative research or quantitative, but also mixed method. So in all, I think we've come a long way, and there is still a long way to go. We will keep on improving and working hard and harder for this SGMC to grow over years to come. And we will take it, we have already taken it international, but I would still want to see it grow in leaps and bounds from now. And with the support of everybody in management, including Monica ma'am, VC sir, Isaac sir, and my team SGMC, I really hope that we can take it to the next level and improve it as we move from one year to another. So that's all from my side. In terms of the number of papers, we already know that we have received good number of papers, and they all have publication opportunities. And I take this opportunity to thank everyone who has participated and is going to present tomorrow. And I wish them all the very best. Whether we are able to produce or present our papers in a journal is immaterial, but what is important is that we continue to write something which is going to contribute to academia or to industry in some way or the other. So we keep doing significant work in our areas of specialization. Thank you.
I would also like to say that, sorry, sir.
Thank you very much. Of course, I am glad that this particular conference has a paper or a session by an expert on publications, how to get published high quality papers. I think there is a session tomorrow. It is very important, particularly we are a university now. You know that we have, of course, we are a research institution. The quality of the research papers is going to be very important. And our university's profile is going to be changed by quality publications. So now I had two interactions with the research scholars of the university, 2 batches. I had interacted for long, 1-to-1 with them. Of course, there was an old adage, publish or perish. Now, of course, that's very important. You have to publish. That is publish. That to keep you going in any university system. You have to publish. But we should not publish and perish, because there are now instances of people getting papers published and perishing themselves by that. The reason is that they are published in obscure journals. And what is particularly beginners are getting trapped into it. For example, International Journal of Management, Science, Technology, Astrology, and Environment together, Global Journal of this, International Journal of this, but you do not know the editor, you do not know the editorial board, you do not know where it is published from. And you will see international, I will take some other example, International Journal of Engineering, Research and Technology, published from, it is an international journal, but nobody knows who is the editor, nobody knows who is on the editorial board. Somebody will say it's an online journal, but online journals also are also published by, there is an editorial board, there are editors, there are subject editors, all these things are there in online journals also. So there is a trend all over the world. There is a trend that large number of predatory journals are coming up, and therefore it is very important when we are taking up such focused interventions. It is very important that we should give a clear signal to particularly the beginners in research about the quality of the such publications. When I publish a paper, if I'm a researcher, I should know who is the editor of that journal. I should know who is on the, at least who is on the editorial board. I should know whom, for example, I should be interacting with them. We cannot say that since they are online journals, we do not know anything. That's not possible at all. Online journals, now there are very good, very efficient mechanisms in online journals to ensure quality of publications. For example, you can get reviewers review quickly. You can have open review. For example, if I can present my paper to the online platform, anybody can review it. Anybody can review it. That there is a possibility like that. Open reviewing is there, and then based on the review, and this review will be open again. Review will be open on that paper. Based on the open review by a number of experts, journals invite this particular author to publish, to get that paper in their journal. These are all things happening in quality publishing, in research publishing, and therefore it is very important to ensure the quality of the journals which we are going to publish. Therefore, let me congratulate the organizers for taking up this very seriously. And there is a session on publication. And of course, there are a large number of writings nowadays in science, technology, management, in all areas about the predatory journals. And we have to be doubly sure that our new researchers, they should not get into traps by publishing in some obscure predatory journals. They might have, it may be a good piece of research, but they will get it published in an obscure journal without any peer review or anything, and they will face the. Now there are also universities and national institutions are publishing that those researchers, those applicants who have published in such journals, they need not apply for the university. This is application. Advertisements are coming like that. And in selection committees, they say that in such and such journals, if they have published, for example, you cannot have an international journal without an international editorial board. That is, or in an international journal has to be published by an international professional organization. That is how we. But people, if to get national name, it is very difficult now in our country. Get the national tag. So international, nobody is there to control, and therefore anybody can put international. So we have to be extremely careful. No, not we are all senior people, but we have to be doubly advising our youngsters don't get into trap of such nomenclature like international journal and global journal, all these things. But they have to find out what is international about it and what is global about it. These are the things we have to clearly tell the but the newly joining researchers these things. I'm glad that there will be a good number of participants. Of course, I had interaction with some of these researchers, and I have been telling this. I have been advocating this. We are facing it at all levels. As a peer reviewer also, I am facing such difficulties. When it comes to interviews, we are facing difficulties. They believe that I have published I have published in an international journal. They believe with conviction, they believe, but we have to just tell them the correct things which are happening in publications. I thought of just highlighting this particular point. I have been telling this in all selection committees now. All selection committees, I am clearly advocating this particular principle. It's very important. But it is not, of course, we have to publish. By publishing in obscure and predatory journals, don't permit them to perish themselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you,
We have
sir.
Dr. Steenkamp with us now. Over to your team interface.
We have amidst us the distinguished keynote speaker of the 17th SIMSR Global Marketing Conference, Dr. Jan-Benedict Steenkamp. Dr. Jan-Benedict Steencamp is the Master Distinguished Professor of Marketing at the University of North Carolina's Kenan-Flagler Business School and co-founder, together with the global market research agencies GfK and Kantar, of IMARK. He has published over 100 articles in academic journals, including the Journal of Marketing, Journal of Marketing Research, Journal of Consumer Research, Marketing Science, International Journal of Research in Marketing, Management Science, Strategic Management Journal, Academy of Management Journal, Journal of International Business Studies, Psychometrica, and Harvard Business Review. His work has received over 56,000 citations. He is ranked 5th in marketing on career-long impact and in 0.1% of scientists across all sciences. He has written 5 managerial books: Private Label Strategy, How to Beat the Store Brand Challenge; Brand Breakout, How Emerging Markets will go global; Global Brand Strategy, Worldwide Marketing in the Age of Branding; Retail Disruptors, The Spectacular Rise of Impact of the Hard Discounters; and most recently, Time to Lead, Lessons for Today's Leaders from Bold Decisions That Change History. He has received an honorary doctorate from Aarhus University, Denmark. The Royal Netherlands Academy of Sciences awarded him the Muller Lifetime Prize for exceptional achievements in the area of behavioral and social sciences. He also received Lifetime Achievement Honors from the American Marketing Association for Global Marketing and Marketing Research from the European Marketing Academy and the Society for Marketing Advances. Sir, it is truly an honor to have you with us today. I believe I speak for everyone here that we are all excited to learn from you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction, and it is an honor to be here at the conference, albeit that I am not in Mumbai, but I'm here in Chapel Hill. I wish I were with you there in person, but perhaps another time. If I am allowed to share the screen, actually I am, so that is good. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can now.
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay. And so thank you very much. So what I would like to talk with you about is true corporate leadership, which shows itself in investing in brands in times of crisis. That is, in good times, it is not so difficult to invest in your brands. It is not so difficult to continue to do that. It's especially that in tough times, that kind of quality shows itself. And what I will show is that actually often that is found wanting. And for establishing and maintaining good customer relationships, it is especially important what you do in bad times. And then I will reflect upon some reasons why that is not happening. And then I will take a step further in the leadership arena. But let's first start off with the fact that it is not a question whether bad times will occur in our lifetimes, but it is when it will occur. India has gone through a significant rough patch recently, like the entire world. It's recovering, but India, like the US, the UK, and other major powers will, enter another recession at some point in the future. And then the question is, what do brand managers do in those situations? Well, the most common reaction of corporate leaders in bad times is to cut discretionary marketing investments in their brands. This is just an illustrative example about global advertising. We see that in the two most recent economic crises, the global financial crisis and the COVID crisis, money spent on advertising at the global level has decreased significantly. I've also studied that with in particular markets, This is evidence from the US, and we see here the cyclical co-movement elasticity. In normal English, it is, if you look at a positive number, it means that the investments in that particular marketing mix instruments go up with the economy and go down also when the economy goes down. And that's called pro-cyclical behavior. And we see that innovation activity, advertising activity, promotional activity of national brands, you know, like the Tides and the Ariels, etc. of this world, that they go up in good economic times, whereas in bad economic times they go down. And then the only interesting thing here is that, when it comes to price, actually in bad economic times, so the economy goes down, prices go up versus the national versus the store brands, whereas in good economic times they go relatively down. The reason for that is that, you know, increasing prices in bad economic times is essentially the fastest way how to pad the bottom line. Of course, whether it is in the long run a good strategy remains to be seen. Here is cyclical conduct of another market, the UK, at the brand level, and we see broadly the same picture emerging. Advertising, brand assortment, which is directly related to innovation, product introduction, and distribution activity go up in good times and are being drawn back in bad times. This is very recent evidence. Now, the question then is, of course, as a marketing scientist, we have to wonder, okay, is that a bad thing? Because if managers do that, you know, perhaps it is very smart. It is actually good in terms of long-term company performance. So my research has also been interested in identifying whether this actually is associated, this kind of pro-cyclical behavior is associated with, say, good economic performance for the company, the brand, or not. Here, I'm not going to go into, I will just only look at the effect of advertising for the sake of time. In this study with Rajavi and Kushwaha, I was interested in, okay, what does now this short-term marketing behavior in relationship to good versus bad times, what does that do to brand equity? One of the important variables that companies are interested in. And so what we see is that if we just look at advertising, just for the sake of time, I will only focus on one instrument. In expansionary periods, when the economy is growing, if you advertise a lot, so you go from low advertising to high advertising, advertising builds brand equity in the long run. And that is actually, I think that most managers would expect that, and it's certainly also consistent with marketing science. But we see that in contractions, economic contractions, bad times, the effect of advertising is actually much more. So the effect of advertising in bad economic times on building brand equity is about twice as large as the effect in good times. So advertising always builds brand equity, but in bad times, it builds much more than in good times. One of the reasons there is because everybody is cutting back on advertising in bad times. So you get less advertising clutter. If you maintain advertising in these bad times, you actually get much more attention in the minds of consumers. So we have here a situation that actually a firm that keeps on advertising in bad economic times gets more bang for the buck in terms of brand equity. Brand equity is a concept that the financial types in the company do understand, because this is brand equity expressed in dollar amount. So that is something that they already directly see. But perhaps they are even more interested in profits. And in another paper, I looked at the effect of advertising and research and development investments related to new product development in good times and in bad times. Now, what we see here is what do advertising and R&D do in good economic times. So on the left-hand panel, we see if you increase R&D and advertising relative to your competitors, the right-hand side, if you decrease it relative to the competitors. And then vertically, the profits in millions of dollars, everything else got held constant. And what we do here in this paper, we don't only look at the what is generated the same year, because as we all know, advertising and even more R&D have effects that last years rather than is only for the current year. Now, what we see here is that in economic expansions, that advertising and R&D do pay off in terms of profit. That is, that if you invest in those two marketing mix instruments relative to the competition, profits are higher. And whereas if you decrease it, profits are lower. And the effect is 14 million. The absolute number of the effects is not as important. I'm going to look at the relative number, how this picture changes in bad economic times, because in this sample, we have large companies and we have smaller companies and we control for a lot of variables, etc., which is not so interesting for the purposes of our talk today. But the key story here is, okay, investing in advertising and R&D pays out in terms of profits in expansionary periods. Manager would say, well, that is great. That is probably what we would hope for, although this is kind of, pretty powerful evidence. But how does the picture change in bad economic times? What effect does it have on profits? Actually, in bad economic times, the effect is even bigger. That is that if you in bad economic times invest in R&D and advertising, the profits versus good economic times are even higher, whereas if you don't do that, the profits are even lower. And so the difference between 18 million in bad economic times versus 40 million in good economic times means that you get essentially 26% more profitability if you keep up investing in your brands, investing in building customer relationships with advertising and with new products. There are other instruments as well, but we have looked at these two. It makes a heck of a lot of sense. But there is one caveat here, that is in bad economic times, if you do keep up investing in advertising and R&D, you get actually a hit in the profits in the year that you do it. But in the second and the third year, because these, again, advertising and R&D are essentially not expenses. It is an accounting fallacy. It is building in long-term relationships that are going to pay off for multiple, even for many years. So you get in the second and the third and the fourth year, you get actually a significantly higher profit than if you would not have done it. And the net effect, therefore, is that if you have courageous behavior in economic contractions, it pays off. Not in the same year, but in next years. Now, the question then is, there is a significant amount of evidence that actually going against the grain and investing in brands in bad economic times does pay off for your company. But we have also seen that the dominant reaction of companies is not to do that. Now, why is that the case? And then actually that is something that that really interests me a lot, because clearly if this behavior is suboptimal, I'm interested in why these people are doing that. And my research has identified, say, two main factors. I am not arguing that there might be some other factors, but two main factors do play a significant role. The first factor is financial myopia. In say the accountants, the CFO, even to some extent, many people in the C-suite, they see marketing as an expense rather than as an investment. The issue is very important because an expense has to be earned back the same year, if you will. It is being fully applied that year. Whereas if it is an investment, it is essentially being depreciated. It is spread over multiple years. So the short-term view among the financial people in the company on marketing activities, where marketing people, in my view, also have not always sufficiently pushed back that one should have a long-term view on that, kind of helps this kind of clearly suboptimal behavior that in bad economic times, you cut expenses. A second aspect is that marketing budgets are often set as a percentage of sales. And that is, essentially, any economist would say that that is not profit maximizing, but it is very common. Now, if in bad economic times sales decline, then by definition, the budget also declines, unless you don't use that criterion, but this is a dominant criterion. And the third aspect is, and related to it, is that that companies, and especially the C-suite, is disproportionately focused on short-term financial results at the expense of long-term brand building. And this is an interesting quote that I have, or finding that I take from an accounting journal, leading accounting journal, that did research among CFOs, and 80% of the CFOs in this sample said they would be willing to decrease discretionary spending on R&D and marketing to meet an earnings target. Well, and meeting earnings targets may happen in good and bad times. Say, for example, anybody, including me, that has a significant portfolio of Facebook shares. Yesterday was not the best day in their lives, with the shares, taking a 27% hit because the earnings targets were not met. But in bad economic times, earnings targets are even more difficult to meet, so there is a bigger pressure to cut it. So this is essentially what's called financial myopia. It is a short-sightedness. It is too limited a view that the C-suite has on marketing. In my view, and I try to tell that to my students too, one of the certainly marketing is not completely without fault in this respect, in that many, at least of my marketing students at the MBA or the EMBA level, they do not have the insight in financial side of business that they should have. Marketing people should be much more able to talk finance with the people that hold the budget strings. But there is another broad type of reason over and above financial myopia, and that is there is essentially a lack of courage, a lack of disruptive thinking in many companies going on. And so my research has shown that many companies are prone to herding behavior. That is essentially, if everybody cuts in bad economic times, I can hardly be blamed if I cut as well. Because as this cartoon shows, I cannot be held accountable for something that we all do. Essentially, that's like, say, collective responsibility, and collectively, we fall into hell. So that is one thing. And the second thing is that people in general have a love for the status quo. They don't like to take risks. And doing something else than everybody else is doing is taking a risk. That is, if it doesn't work out, and in business, there are never any certainties that things work out. If it doesn't work out, then you are clearly to blame. So there is something about it also in terms of the mindset of the senior marketing people, and also, of course, at a more general level, there is a lack of disruptive thinking in the C-suite in many companies. Now, this is something that I'm kind of interested in because I encounter it a lot, and then people ask me also, okay, you know, what can you do about it? And the real culprit here is that there is not enough leadership. And marketing scholars should also be interested in the issue of leadership. Because there is significant overlap between the two domains. And that is, the reason is that in marketing, what we try to do is to get others, that usually could be customers, but you also have internal marketing, you know, get employees, but let's forget about that for a second, to get others to do what you want. That is also the essence in a nutshell of leadership. We marketing people, scientists, studying it, practitioners are living it, have to deal with followers who are not only guided by rationality. You know, the consumer is not rational. We already know that, and the same goes with people, you know, team members in your company. And we are very used as marketeers to operate under conditions of incomplete information, and any leader has to do that, whether it's a business leader, a political leader, a military leader, and whatever. And we have to set out strategies to get followers to do what they want to do. So all these things we see in marketing, but all these things actually we can also use to essentially increase the effectiveness of marketing in a company. And this cross-fertilization between marketing and leadership is, on this slide, what I do is following. I have 7, say, ideal types of leadership styles. And then I have a marketing counterpart and an example. A first leadership style in my work is adaptive leadership. You know, you modify according to the context, to the circumstances. Many leaders are kind of the adaptive kind. What is the marketing counterpart that we're studying? We adapt the marketing mix to local needs. McDonald's is an example. If I look at the McDonald's, at what is being offered in McDonald's in India, I don't see too much, you know, products made of beef and pork out there. Whereas in the United States, it would be unthinkable not to have it. And if I go to the McDonald's in the Netherlands, I have mayonnaise with French fries, for example, whereas in France, you don't have that. Starbucks in China has a huge tea assortment, and not much tea is there in the United States. So marketing, we have a deep knowledge when it comes to adaptation to local needs. And in leadership, there is a direct counterpart, is adaptive leadership. Second leadership style is persuasive leadership, to change the minds of your followers. Well, you know, that is essentially, that is all our advertising courses or marketing communication courses. Directive leadership is defining the marching order. You set out what has to be done. Pressure selling is a well-known sales technique, is a direct counterpart in the marketing. And disruptive leadership, and we will come to that a little bit later, In marketing, it means offering a new product or a new business model that completely disrupts the competition. Like the iPhone or Dollar Shave Club or Airbnb that completely have reshaped an industry. Authentic leadership is leading by example. And we see that in brands as well. Authentic brand story like Lego, Coke, or Chanel. Servant leadership is you put your followers first. That is a big thing in marketing, and also a theme of the conference is essentially to establish not only relationship with your customers, but going above that, going out of your way to serve your customers. And charismatic leadership is buy into the leader, then follow their vision. We see a lot of movement these days in terms of imbuing your brand with a higher purpose. That is called purpose branding. Unilever is one of the companies doing a lot of that. Nike is doing a lot of that as well. So what we see here is that there is a lot of overlap between marketing and leadership. And I'm kind of interested in this because of the fact that my academic research has shown a consistent type of behavior that is essentially suboptimal at the most positive, and it still continues. So there is clearly something about a lack of leadership in these companies. And because what we know is that many of the, let's say, really advances in scientific thinking comes when certain academic areas kind of meet each other and you get cross-fertilization. I mean, think about areas like biochemistry or astrophysics, or I was for 3 years on the Spinoza Committee in the Netherlands, which is nicknamed the Dutch Nobel Prize. And one of the prizes was awarded to a woman who did actually galactic archaeology. That is essentially, she applied principles of archaeology to study the origins of the Milky Way. That was actually extremely fascinating. So what you have is that often by taking things from one area and applying them to another area or kind of merging them, new areas of insight and new disciplines emerge. And let us not forget the following, that many of us, especially at the more senior level, will be leaders in our own organization. That can be our university or that can be our company. But the point is, the higher you get, the less time you are spending on research, the less time you are spending on selling your brand, and the more time actually you are trying to get others around, essential point of view, to try to get others around to do what you want them to do, or perhaps you have to come to your insight that you have to change as well. So some of us, and the previous speaker was alluding to that about the senior people here, is that you at the senior level will probably spend a significant amount of time in leadership positions. I have spent a lot of time in leadership positions, and you have that as well. So then the question is, how can we in our jobs become more effective leaders? My brother is now retired, was a vice president at Royal Dutch Shell, and he was one of the leaders in a big thing going on in Kazakhstan, a big oil field in the Caspian Sea. He is by training a mechanical engineer, and he has a PhD in mechanical engineering. And the technical problems were daunting. And I asked him in his job, what actually is your greatest challenge in developing this oil field? And you would have expected to be, it is the ice that is moving, in the winter and kind of destroying installations, etc. It might have been getting the oil out he said, actually, my biggest challenge is to lead a team with a lot of Italians, because it is, these technical problems I can essentially handle, but these Italians, and for whatever reason, I can't get a good handle on them. And so that's the point here, is that for senior people, many of us actually are not trained to be leaders, but we are called to be a leader. Now, for us, that is important, because whether it is at the business school, at the university, or whether it is in a company, many great ideas of marketeers are never put into practice. And that, again, comes down to the issue of leadership. And of course, it can be because we are talking about great ideas. Bad ideas should not be put into practice for obvious reasons. Now, so the question is, how can managers, and also in an academic setting, but then you are also a manager, I mean, a dean is for all practical purposes a pure manager, how can they improve their leadership? And here I want to focus especially on disruptive leadership, because the context in which I was getting triggered by that is the very fact that these companies are continuing to do things that are suboptimal when the going gets really tough in economic recessions. Essentially, to learn leadership is you can read theoretical books on leadership, and those have their value, but most of us learn from case studies, and actually all of us teach case studies in our programs. So we learn from real practical examples. And for that, to look at these real practical examples, the greatest value, in my view, is to turn to history, so to past great leaders. A couple of points to motivate that. Machiavelli, may be known to you, he said in The Prince that he valued no possession as much as the knowledge of the actions of great men. His book is based on the insights that he derived from these great men, and it is without any doubt the most important political treatise ever written. The Economist, more recently, had a very interesting article, History Lessons for Managers, and they concluded that those historical figures, they reviewed 3 in their article, who have passed through the fire surely have something to teach modern day managers. That's getting interesting. That's what the Economist says. And this is what the greatest management thinker of all time, Peter Drucker, says. Because the argument that he often faces, and that I've often faced also in podcasts, is, isn't everything different now? And the point is, no, not everything is different. Human conditions, human behavior, human motivations, human values have actually changed really little over time. There are many people out there that are self-serving. It was 3000 BC the case, it is now in 2022 the case. There are power-hungry people. There are people that are like Mother Teresa, of recent age as well as long ago. There are charismatic people, perhaps like Prime Minister Modi could be one of those, but you are a better judge than I have. And you have essentially, colorless wimps like the Dutch Prime Minister, and I came originally from the Netherlands, and he is a complete wimp. He's adaptive without being a leader. He would sell his own mother to get things done. So you have these things are of all time. Now, so with these insights and what I have written, and then I will go into a little bit deeper in this series of case studies that I wrote a book, Time to Lead, which combines my passion for marketing, my passion for history, my knowledge of leadership, and my experience in leadership in a number of chapters in which I provide a case study for multiple case studies for each type of leadership. That doesn't mean that the leader cannot have multiple types of leadership, but one thing that really stood out. And what I'm going to do now is I am going to use the life of Fisher to get a little bit deeper into disruptive leadership and what that means for you as well, whether you are an academic leader or whether you are a business leader. Now, the context of this case study is a huge technologically advanced organization with global interests and a footprint, global footprint. It's an organization that had a commanding lead over its competitors on the main product line. Past success had created a culture of complacency, and competitors were still starting to close the gap. It sounds like General Electric or something like that. So this was the context which this leader found. But in this case, the organization was not a mere firm, fairly trivial, but the organization was the shield of a nation and its empire. And we are talking here about the Royal Navy, and this was the world in 1900, and the world superpower, hands down, at that time was Great Britain. And as you can see on this map, Britain was a sea empire. That is, the different parts of the empire were connected to each other through sea lanes. And as you can also see, the most crucial sea lane was from Great Britain to Gibraltar, Malta, Alexandria, Aden, Bombay, Ceylon, to Australia, New Zealand. So this was essentially, this is the former Thetis Ocean, of hundreds of millions of years ago. This line was the vital line that held the British Empire together. Now, Britain was in this situation that we have here. It wasn't all looking so good. When in 1904, Jackie Fisher became their first Sea Lord, which is essentially the supreme head of the Royal Navy. And he instituted a number of key reforms. And I will focus on some of them in a little bit more detail. But he had major organizational reforms. He introduced two new types of ships, a destroyer and battle cruiser. He redistributed the fleet to the home waters, and he introduced a ship that made all other ships obsolete. So this is actually an absolutely, radical innovation. Now the question is then, why was he successful, and what can we learn from his leadership? And I teach this with my MBA students to essentially say, because what you often said is that when we talk about risk taking, people say it's really a lot of risk. Can we do that, etc. I said, we can look at life at a guy like this. He's a man of flesh and blood like we all. His risks were vastly higher than yours. He had the courage, so why not you? A first thing that we can learn from his leadership is, for disruptive leadership, a first stage is think. That is, you need to develop and nurture a disruptive mindset. That is, you analyze the environment, you learn about the environment, you challenge what is being done. Some examples in Admiral Fisher's life was that he was continuously thinking about new threats and new solutions. He didn't want to be held back by the status quo. He had 4 stints at the Naval Gunnery and Torpedo School, and that could be, for academics, that could be, going to the conferences, presenting their papers, for practitioners going to, perhaps get back to school to take an executive course. And he concluded, after a deep analysis of the environment, that it wasn't France, it was Germany that was the mortal threat to Britain and its empire. So what about you? Okay, what I thought I saved it, but apparently not. So what about you here is, I will ask you some questions, and let me give you as an example of how to do with that in the life of an academic. And there will be I will give a few examples of the life of my wife, Valerie Zeithamel Steenkamp, and how she essentially it was her disruptive thinking which landed her the first woman that got the highest award in marketing, the Irwin Award, and it landed her 250,000 citations. So here are some questions that you can ask. Do others consider you a strategic, long-term thinker, a person who excels in operational details? And if you're in a new position, are you looking for new ways how to do things? Do you embrace change? Do you monitor the environment for new opportunities? Do you test the waters before plunging into the deep? Do you take a little time off to continue to update your insights? So, in my wife's situation, that happened kind of early when she was a lifeguard. That was actually, so she was a teenager. When she was a lifeguard, you know, there's a person sitting in the swimming pool to see that people don't drown, etc. And she's just started to wonder why it was, how she could essentially serve the people better, you know, the people that were swimming, etc. And why it was that some lifeguards were doing a much better job than other lifeguards. She was kind of thinking about this, and she was kind of hypothesizing what might be of importance or something like that. But then, I mean, not much came of it because, you know, she was only, you know, a teenager. But then later on, when she came to the PhD program in Maryland, she wanted to do her PhD in the area she was really passionate about, that was services marketing. And she has emerged as the services marketing guru of the world. Actually, they said, you know, you never get a job with services marketing, so she had to do something else. And her supervisors, and she fired actually one of the supervisors because he was so incompetent and went to another one. Her supervisors clearly did not have a disruptive mindset. They wanted to do what everybody else was doing. And initially she was, I mean, kind of persuaded or forced to do something. And she did a study on pricing, and she did it very well. She won an award for it, but it never really was her passion. And in the meantime, she kept on thinking about that's and to kind of thinking about analyzing the environment. And when she started as assistant professor, she concluded that actually there was hardly anybody doing any research on services marketing, and that actually offered an opportunity for her because it was something different from what others had been doing. And she got an indication that there might be actually some really good potential in the area of services marketing. So disruptive leadership is a mindset and a skill. And so what you have is Fisher developed, honed, and implemented that long before he arrived at the top. You cannot start too early in your career as well. And so if you want to, you need to think. We all need to think more, to take a step back and again, kind of analyze the environment. Are there interesting things going on? For example, are there interesting things going on in India that might be potentially of relevance for other markets as well? That's always good for publication if it is not purely an Indian phenomenon, and often that will not be the case. Is there can you do, before committing to action, do some pre-studies, do some smaller things to see whether there is something in there. And do not try to always just follow the path that has been taken by everybody else. I often get PhD students here that say to me, and say, dependent on the time, I need to do something in structural modeling. I said, why do you want to do something in structural modeling? He said, well, that seems to be the flavor of the day. I said, okay, if that's the flavor of the day, you may want to do something else rather than being the zeal in structural modeling. Is there not something else that you that could be of interest? Or they now say, we need to do a field experiment. I said, do you have any special interest in field experiment? Do you have any special knowledge of field experiments? If everybody is doing it, why not something else? I gotten a lot of mileage out of the fact that in the say early 1990s, international marketing was seen as very weak and not very rigorous. But I was interested in it, and I saw an opportunity there to essentially bring my methodological skills to an area which was seen as weak. But the point is, in principle, international marketing is very important, given that outside of your own country, the market is a lot bigger. So it's managerially important. Academically, it's also important. So the weakness of an area can also be an opportunity. So, but you have to analyze what is around there. Where are the real options for you? And here, actually, so I mixed that up. So you see here, this is I just Googled that today. This is my wife. And this article, by the way, you can run in it, the Surf Call article, was published in the Journal of Retailing. It was rejected by JM and JMR because it was just the scale. You get a lot of disruptive thinking, a lack of disruptive thinking at major journals as well. Well, okay, it is now cited 42,000 times and being applied around the world. So believing in what you are doing is very important, even if it is different from what others are doing. The second thing is that you need to have the courage to disrupt the status quo. Fisher did that, for example, by adopting unproven technologies, being willing to accept certain short-term risks for uncertain long-term benefits. And the introduction of the Dreadnought was the best example of that. It's a major thing. So the Dreadnought was introduced in 1907. And briefly speaking, it made all other battleships obsolete. And because it was the first all big gun battleship, it was a monumental ship. And what did it mean? This was the situation of Great Britain at the time. Great Britain had a commanding lead in battleships over all the other countries. So if you introduce as the market leader a battleship that makes all other battleships obsolete, that means, look at this, that you essentially make your own commanding lead obsolete. Now, did Fisher understand that? Obviously. And Fisher was given to strong language, and this is only a congenital idiot with criminal tendencies would permit any tampering with the maintenance of our naval supremacy. But Fisher understood that as the market leader, this is important for the company, and then Apple understands that quite well, as a market leader, you should lead. You should come up with the innovations, even if it cannibalizes on what you have. And it did pay off. This is a magnificent line of British dreadnoughts in 1916 at the mother of all sea battles, the Battle of Jutland, where in the First World War, when the Royal Navy fought it out with the German High Seas Fleet, and the High Seas Fleet, the Germans were decisively beaten back. They never tried it anymore to come out, and it is because of this line of dreadnoughts that Britain strategically won the battle. And historians agree with the fact that without Fisher's leadership, it was not at all obvious that Britain would have won that battle. So it did pay off, but it was in the long run, but it was a very significant risk in the short run. If you do something different than everybody else, it is risky. Because again, if you are doing now a field experiment, I'm just giving some examples, not that I'm saying those are not good things, but the point is, if you are doing or a structural model or something with the internet, a good chance that people will not have any problem with that, in the sense that people will say, well, yeah, okay, that is something that we all do, so this looks really nice. But does it really distinguish you from others? What I find a lot in China is that people are doing CB research in some sterile student lab, etc. And then sometimes I ask them, this is, great, but what distinguishes you from people in the US who have vastly higher resources, who have a lot of other things? What is different? Are these, by the way, I said, also the kind of things perhaps that Chinese academia needs the most? Or perhaps can there be other things that you study, very, very different things? So can you go a very different path? Do you have the courage to do that as an academic? Do you also have the courage to do that as a business leader? Are you comfortable with high levels of uncertainty? Let's face it as follows: nobody likes uncertainty. I mean, in the sense that 90% of the people we are genetically coded to be risk averse. But if you take some risk, like my wife took risk to move into the services when everybody said, this is no good, this is a weak field. When I moved into international marketing in early 1990s, people thought, this is a dead-end street. International marketing is full of bullshit. But I kind of saw that the lack of something offered for me an opportunity to do something very different. And my wife did that with great success as well. So to distinguish yourself, it can really help to do something very different from others. Now, the third aspect is implement. Fisher pushed through these reforms in 6 years, which is amazing. The dreadnought was built very fast, so to signal that Britain would outbuild anybody else. Got the support from key players, essentially his immediate superiors, the Prime Minister and the King. And he had also a support of his young Turks. And he had grit. I mean, he had perseverance. He really went for it. What is your grit? If you are facing obstacles, do you give up or not? The previous speaker was talking about, that you have to not to go for some kind of, I think he used the word obscure journals, but to go for international journals. It's implementation. You have to have your idea. You have to search, analyze, look for new ideas, come up with new ideas. Then you have to decide to do it, to do the research, and the implementation is to submit the article. Now, you need grit, because it is wonderful to say that what the previous speaker, I think the vice provost was saying about go not for obscure journals, but go for international journals. But unfortunately, the reject rate at international journals is very high. The reject rate at the Journal of Marketing is definitely above 90%. I think it is 92, 93%. Unfortunately, that doesn't only happen to others, that also happens to you and to me. That happens to all of us. And you need grit to overcome that, because nobody likes to be rejected. You don't like it. I don't like it. I have now already some papers in these journals. Am I still completely, neutral when my paper is rejected? No, I still don't like it. And I still am kind of pissed off, if you will. So you need to have the grit to do that. Networking connections for disruptive leadership is, and there is something in networking connections on the positive side here for you, is that see whether you can build up networks of people that you go to conferences. It's very important that you go to international conferences. And of course, I do understand there is a financial constraint for some people. So you have to choose it carefully. When you are at these international conferences, don't hang out with your friends. Reach out to other people that you don't know, by whose work you are inspired by. You can learn from them. Invite other people, international people, and I'm not saying that you don't do it. I'm just, in terms of networking, to them to come to India for a little while, or to do something about. So build up a network, which is very important. Now, with these international journals, it is not at all the case that it is only people that are in the network that are going to make it. That is a fallacy. But a network can help you. You may be able to send a paper to them and say, can you give some comments on the paper? Where do you think it would be best? Do you have some other suggestions? I had to build up my network. You have to build it as well. Now, also, do you have the energy to be a disruptive leader? Costs a lot of energy. And a disruptive leader means in academia that you are doing something different. And also for some of you, it means that you really say, okay, I'm not going to go for local journals anymore. I'm going for international journals. Do you have sufficient commitment to your career and to your job? Do you have sufficient energy to do that? Because it does take a heck of a lot more time to do it. Now, perhaps not everybody has, cares about it enough to do that, and that is fine. I mean, then you are not a disruptive leader. You may be very happy being locally active, and that is one's own value judgment. Although, as I think the previous speaker already mentioned, India is moving into a direction where that is not sufficiently acceptable in many places anymore. Now, if you look at these things and you say, actually, I'm not so high on some of those things. Can you develop ideas how to improve it? Can you? Fisher was working 24/7. 24/7. Now, I have not worked 24/7, but both my wife and me, we have worked, a lot more than 8 hours a day. And I think that applies to some of us as well. It is, in terms of building grit, one way how to do that is to just start, submit journals. And one good Indian friend of mine, a close Indian friend of mine, she wrote to me recently, okay, so 2021 was not such a good journal, not such a good time. I submitted several papers to a journal, and none of them made it. And I encouraged her, but also she said, I'm going to continue because I want to make that happen. That is going to happen. Now that is grit. It is not easy, but then the standards are high. But there is no reason why Indians should not be able to do that. There is actually no reason at all. Looking just at how many Indian scholars are very successful within the field of marketing. So there is fortunately some precedent here. And the same goes again for companies. Now, just takeaways. The overwhelming reaction, coming back to where I started from, overwhelming reaction of firms in recessions is to cut back on marketing and branding investments. Evidence has shown that this actually is a wrong strategy. It's a suboptimal strategy. It going with the flow, what everybody else is doing, leads to worse corporate outcomes. And I would say that when it comes to academia, I tend to be convinced that it also leads to worse academic outcomes. Because the thing is, if you're going with the flow with what everybody else is doing, then you are essentially directly competing with, say, people from US universities, from European universities, who often are better funded. They have more research money, and they have mentors, people that have been publishing in these journals, which gives them a bit of an edge. So if you go, head to head with somebody on about the same topic, you are at a disadvantage. But if you go against the flow, you do something different, your academic thinking is disruptive, then actually I believe that you have a significantly better chance. And then what you do also is to test the waters. That is this first thing about thinking, analyzing, go to a conference and present your ideas there. And, if nobody likes it, then either the idea is not good, or perhaps your positioning is not good, or you may have to improve upon it. But that is essentially testing the waters at an early stage. And decide the courage to do that. And it takes courage to do something different, and then implement it. And I would also say some of the need for speed. It is so, sometimes you may have heard a rumor that some other people are roughly also working on a particular topic. Sometimes you may know that. Well, then you want to be ahead of others in submitting your paper, because the worst thing is that if you are submit a paper, and actually, the thing is, there is a paper, conditionally accepted on this topic, what is different? So the need for speed should not be ruled out. And much leadership is learned by observing and reading about others. Observing, you can observe within, for example, your own university. You can also read about other leaders. I'm just currently reading a second biography on Margaret Thatcher, and when of whom I'm a great admirer, and I want, essentially, if I have the time, I'm just going to have a 2 or 3 pages summary of her leadership tactics, etc. And I could actually exactly see how I can implement it here at my own university. A lot of these things, for example. And the point is, let's say, we are talking about proven leaders here. We learn from these case studies. Well, if you're interested in this, you can get my book on Amazon, also Amazon India, and I now hand it over back to Dr. Cowell for possible questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Steenkamp, for your wonderful keynote address. We are really indebted to you for taking your time out and sharing your thoughts with us. We are really happy to have you today. And every time we meet, it's always a pleasure to meet you and learn so many things from you. In the past also, whether it's history or branding. I mean, I still remember the last time you talked about Dunkirk and how it changed the course of history for World War II and things like that, that you keep writing and sharing with us, all of us. Thank you so much for your keynote address. Thanks a lot. We now open the floor for question and answers. Thank you.
Professor Steenkamp?
Yes.
Hi, I am Professor Isaac Jacob from the KJ Somaiya Institute of Management. We had the occasion of meeting at the Leuven, conference some time back, where you gave a keynote address as such. But I just want to make an observation about your research that you did. And that is that, even in India, we have some good examples of, the theme in the first part that you spoke about was on bad times are good times for brand building and brand equity creation. And that has been validated by quite a few of the brands. The most recent brand that we had during the COVID time, where they went overboard, their share of voice went up maybe twice that of what the others were doing, including their overt, emphasis on new product development and the research part that you spoke about, really has been able to give them some phenomenal results in the marketplace. So it really works even in the marketplace, for instance. I don't have numbers to show, but it proves the point that in bad times, it's a great time to basically build your brand as such. Thank you for that. In fact, I just wanted to make this one observation, please. And the brand is Amul in India. Amul has done some wonderful work.
I am familiar with Amul. Yeah, don't you make up? I think, don't you have, for example, they are in food products. Don't you have butter or something like that too?
Yes. They are the largest in butter. They are the basic brand that has built up on on butter itself. It's not butter, but it's basically milk and then all the milk-based products. In fact, they even export it down to almost all the dairy manufacturing countries also, including Canada and other places and things. It's a huge brand. And they went overboard, and during the pandemic, and everybody was locked in at that particular point in time. This is a utilitarian product that they've been marketing. The entire range is utilitarian, and their vast distribution, really, they capitalize on that. They created certain products very specific to the requirement of immunity building, for instance, as such, and it overboard and build this up. And they were the largest, on television, on national television. They were the largest brand that spent the maximum on television itself, and they could get a great price. But the cost that they actually got was significantly high because nobody else was advertising, and that's where your competition was perhaps was not there, but they went really overboard. I just wanted to make this observation about
nice. Thank you very
Amul.
much.
Yeah.
So my name is Monica Khanna, and I just I wanted to ask you a question. In highly disruptive markets, which are highly disruptive, how does one plan brand strategy? Because you don't know from where the disruption is going to come. I mean, also there's a lot of, today what we can see is a lot of hyper competition. I mean, you really don't know what is creating disruption or who is creating disruption.
That's absolutely correct. So in highly disruptive markets, those are markets where you would say, for example, a lot of technological changes. In my view, the only way, since you cannot predict what other people are going to do, the only way that you can address this is to lead the disruption yourself. That doesn't mean that others are not going to be disrupting, but sometimes a company can have early indications. So in the case of Admiral Fisher, there were early indications that others were thinking about the possibility of an all big gun battleship. So they were essentially thinking about, so people in the press, ideas about a disruptive innovation were popping up, but they were initial. But Fisher used that, if anything, as saying, okay, there are indications that at least others are thinking about it. Nothing has been implemented yet. Let me be ahead of the curve. And that is something. So a more common reaction is what an example is what Gillette did. Gillette, you know, with the razor blades. So they were actually the first to come up with a subscription-based model. So you don't go to a drugstore anymore, but you essentially, it is being sent every month or you directly from the company. They were the first to come up with it, but they decided against it because it would cannibalize on their own sales, and they were afraid that it would disrupt relationships with the brick and mortar retailers where they were dominant. So what they were essentially hoping for is that while they came up with the idea and they thought the risk was too high, that nobody else would have come up with it. So in my view, the way in disruptive markets, you need to lead the disruption because somebody else is otherwise going to implement it. Now, the argument against it, which has often been used, is, well, if you are the market leader and somebody comes up with a disruption, you are a fast follower. So you quickly afterwards introduce it. While in theory that can be the case, in practice with most large organizations never works like that. They're too bureaucratic, they're too slow. Gillette is an example. And interestingly also, it took the Germans, in Fischer's case, it took them more than 2 years before they were able to lay the keel of their first dreadnought. So everything kind of comes back to the following: in disruptive markets, you need to lead the disruption. Is it risky? Absolutely. Is there a viable alternative? That's not obvious to me. I don't think so.
Yeah, for example, in India, I mean, I've been observing, like, you know, we have these various home delivery services. So there's a service called as Zomato. You know, they bring food delivery, they bring food home, and they do it within a reasonable time. Now there's another, home delivery service called as Zepto, and they are promising delivery within 10 minutes. Now, how do you how do you compete? How do you build brands? Because I thought the next company that comes in the delivery service will say, you think about it and it's there in your home. It's going to be so crazy. So how do you, and you know, also the number of options that consumers have from where they can buy. I can buy online, offline, the corner store, the street hawker. I mean, how do you plan for all these things?
I don't, to me, the difference, I would say intuitively, whether you get it in 10 minutes or 15 minutes, seems to be a minor difference. The real disruptive idea would be whether let's say a brick and mortar retailer would have this as a service so that people wouldn't even get into the store, versus say that they don't do it. You cannot. So I do not know the specific context of this service. I would not necessarily. How can you plan on that? Well, for a brick and mortar retailer, what you can do is, if you like again, coming back to the Fischer example, you analyze the environment, what is going on. And you may, as a brick and mortar store, you may capitalize on this idea by either making it more attractive to come to your store, or set up such a service yourself, if it makes any money. Now, the point is, it can make a lot of money in India. That I don't know. In America, these kind of, let's say, in the grocery home service things, don't make money at all. They're only making losses. So here you have a situation in which there is a disruptive service where actually the economic viability after years is still, people are struggling how to figure that out. at the moment that a disruptive service fails actually to make any money, I do believe that you have a bit more time to jump into the fray than if it is actually a kind of a profitable activity right on. But so I cannot give any more specific thing here because I do not know how this particular service, how this works, whether it makes any money. Paul, you had a question.
Thank you again for your presentation. Fascinating. And when you showed us the list of the various 7 different leadership styles, I was fascinated to see Themistocles as one of your examples. And I've looked at him as an example in the sense of saving Athens, from the Persians. And the history of the world would be different if there were no Aristotle or Socrates or Plato. So these leaders make a big difference. And I thank you very much for the insights about disruptive leadership and the different styles there, and in particular cross-pollination. I'm trying tomorrow to incorporate philosophy, psychology, and theories of meaning in marketing. And so the question I have for you is, in particular, in addition to that, you focused on the disruptive style with that case study. Are there any other lessons that you might be able to share with us from the other 6 styles related to advice for people in academia trying to publish in journals and trying to achieve a tenure, maybe from the charismatic style or from other styles? Anything? Thank you.
Okay, I will give you two lessons, if you will, that I draw from all these people. I thought, Paul, that you would highlight St. Peter as a disruptive leader, but Themistocles. So one thing is that I have found that all the leaders exhibited grit. Some were highly moral, other ones were not. Some were humble, other ones were not. Some were highly educated, other ones were not. Now, of course, when it comes to academia, you have to have a certain level of education, obviously. But an important thing is, Paul, some were intelligent, somewhat less. It is my experience, and that comes from these leaders. And also when it comes to academia, that intelligence is important in the sense that you have to have a certain level of intelligence. Otherwise, you probably won't even get the PhD. But also in academia, grit is much more important than intelligence. And now we are talking about reasonable bounds. So not if you're Einstein, that's one category, but none of us is Einstein, no offense to anybody. And you have to have a minimum level of intelligence. But let's say within those bounds, it is grit much more. It is so the perseverance that is also the motivation to succeed. A second thing that I would like to share with you is what I found is that the most successful leaders are what I call in my book eagles. To put it simple, an eagle is somebody that knows where he wants to go, so that has a very clear, call it in this case very specifically, career goal, and he knows how to get there. Okay? So let me give you an example of my own life. When I was a master student, I talked to a mentor, professor in technology, and essentially asked me, okay, what do you want to achieve in life? I said, I either want to be a top manager in the C-suite or a CEO at a large company, or I want to be in the top of the academic profession. I said, that's interesting. We talked about it. Then I kind of thought as follows, Paul. Okay, if I choose between those two, where is most of it under my own control as opposed to under control of outside forces? I decided that it's going to be academia. So I decided before I was 22 or something like at the time at the level, that I wanted to become a top academic. Then I kind of reason back. Okay, what do I see that is necessary to become a top academic? And essentially, I broke it down. And of course, as you know more, you're going to get more. For example, more specifically, so I'm not going to go through exactly all my things, but I knew actually, the point is, because this was, I knew already when I was 15 what I wanted to be. But after I was at an undergraduate level, I kind of decided, it got a little bit sharper. But when I was 15, my passion is history. More than marketing. But in history, you can't make any money. So I have let history make my passion and marketing be my profession. And I love marketing as well. But it is, my whole life has been extremely goal-directed, and that helps. If I ask a lot of junior people, what do you want to achieve? They have no idea. That's a problem, my friends. Because managing your career is, I am not saying it's making you happier, Paul. That is a different thing. If you reach a goal, perhaps you're not happier. That's not the thing. That's a personal thing. Be single-minded on achieving that particular career. So to be a successful academic, you have to do some self-assessment. What are you really strong at? So, for example, are you really good in methods? And that has to be, okay, what's the objective evidence here? How many math and statistics courses have you had? Did you get consistent A pluses or B minuses? Essentially, you can do that yourself. Or are you, for example, a person through contacts that has access to very strong databases? And I know some people have that because they worked at the company. And one PhD student of ours worked for him at the company. He gets data on profit, costs, etc., which actually is great. Or are you an exceptionally good writer? So my wife is an exceptionally good writer. I mean, better than I am. And we all need to have a minimum level. I mean, if you can't string a sentence of English words together without making mistakes, then you have to address that. But you have to be, are you an exceptionally good writer? Are you a person who is able to integrate different perspectives? And I think if people might say something about me, some of them might say that, and certainly my co-authors would say that would be a strength that I would have. And I accredit that to my love of history, because there I'm always seeing to link different things, you know, like Themistocles or whatever, or the kind of thing which obviously is not true. What does the building of the Chinese Wall have to do with the fall of the Roman Empire? Now, actually, the answer of that is not the right thing, but it's not true. But the point is to thinking about it. Now, what you're talking about, you're giving a course in which you integrate different perspectives, you know, philosophy, morals, etc. Now, clearly, if you give such a course, you have to be able to understand these areas, to be able to integrate them. Is that something that could help you build a competitive advantage? But you have to identify, where am I better than others, or at least where I am really strong? And other things be at least satisfactory. If you cannot run a regression analysis, then you have a problem. You know, you have to have basic skills. If you cannot write something at a level that is acceptable, then you have a problem. But not having a problem is never going to get you a paper, at least not an accepted paper. You have to be excellent on something, and what that is something that you have to figure out. So in my collaborations, especially more recent, but so for example, you know, because of contacts that I have, etc., and other jobs, that I get access to huge data sets. I am not good in managing huge data sets. You know, you have to be very good in SAS or something like that to kind of manage that. I'm not good at that. I'm not going to do that. But for such an article, invariably, I have to write the introduction and I have to write the discussion section. Okay, what does this really mean for theory, for practice, etc.? So see all your skill set as a value chain. And outsource everything in the value chain to a co-author or to a PhD student, an RA or whatever, where you don't really have a competitive advantage, but where you have a competitive advantage, be second to none. So these are some things, and they are related implementation of the concept, what I said about the eagle. All my leaders are about eagles. They have an overriding career goal, and they know how to get there. And how to get there is not easy, because you can, as a PhD student can tell me, you know, I want to become, to build the Nobel Prize in economics. By the way, that would be a wonderful career goal. Whether it's realistic is different. But then if you would say, okay, that's a great goal. How do you get there? How do you, yeah, I have no idea. Well, then, I mean, my friend, you know, get out and first think about how to get there. Perhaps, I mean, because I have to go pretty soon, there is a hand up from somebody called Trek 327, which I'm sure is not your name, but please go ahead.
Thank you, Professor Steenkamp. My name is Umang Anand. And sir, I have a question regarding, as you said, we should be investing in brands in bad times more as compared to the good time. So what do you think would be the role of digital channels in these bad times, and especially with respect to the global brands?
Well, COVID is, of course, and when it comes to digital, something very special. Because the digital brand channels have grown dramatically in COVID times, but that has little to do with the bad times per se, but more with the COVID specifics. In bad economic times, let's say there is not much evidence that I'm aware of, which, by the way, suggests something interesting to study. What bad do? Let's say, is there an effect of bad economic times on digital versus hello? Oh, from digital versus non-digital. At this point, I would not know the answer to the question. My intuition would be that it might not have much effect, although I could also argue that in bad economic times, budgets are tighter. It could very well be that people have more time because they're out of work. It could be either of, it depends but with tighter budgets, people will care less about convenience and more about price. If online costs people more than offline, and for example, in the United States, but I don't know for India, in the United States, it's definitely that home delivery of groceries is more expensive than if you go to the store. And that would suggest that, just I'm kind of reasoning that in bad economic times, people shift from online to offline. But that applies to the United States. I do not know whether that applies to India, but the fact that people don't really know the answer to that makes it so you are kind of thinking about this. You are analyzing, thinking about the environment. You're thinking about this. It could be something that could be studied. But my that would be, let's say, my a priori thinking. Convenience less important, price more important. A shift towards a channel that offers essentially lower prices. That would be my thinking, and then you have to fill in the blanks for India.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Dr. Steenkamp, if you have more time, we can take questions later. Right now, it's the time to release our conference compendium. So please join us in releasing it. Vice Chancellor, sir, if he's around. Monica, ma'am, Isaac, sir, Kiran, if you're there. My team, SGMC team, Abha and Navneet, everyone else, please join us in releasing the compendium. Team interface, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is our compendium for the 17th SIMSR Global Marketing Conference. Could you please, scroll down a bit. You can go back to the front page, please. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot for being here today and making this conference a great success on day one. Let's hope we have a great day tomorrow when we have presentations of our delegates, authors. We have a presentation by Dr. Oki Peter, and we also have a panel discussion, which is moderated by Professor Isaac Jacob. He's here, so let's hope we have a very interesting day ahead tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Steenkamp, for joining us today, and hope to see you at our campus in near future, and hope to have lunch or dinner with you soon.
Thank you.